Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and today is celebrating WaffleFlower's April release. They are now switching to monthly releases as of this release. They always used to do, I think it was quarterly releases, like really big releases, but only every 3-ish months, I think, something like that. So now it's slightly smaller releases every month, and there is a blog hop going on, and I was asked if I would like to participate, and I said yes. I'm really falling hard for WaffleFlower images. They're different. I like them, especially like the quirky ones. So I had intended to use the more quirky set today, but this new Bouquet builder set, it just kept moving to the top of the stack, and I couldn't resist playing with it. So for me, I'm doing something a little bit different. I have some Canson XL watercolor paper here, and I'm stamping the largest flower image in the set onto it with some brown hybrid ink. Usually I always stamp in black, but every once in a while I'll see other designers' cards and they stamp things in brown before they watercolor, and it really does change the look. So that's what I did, and I was using my stamp positioner at first because I wasn't sure how smoothly I could get this to stamp, because I am stamping on watercolor paper, and I discovered that it was stamping fine, so that's why I just kept moving the paper around instead of the stamp, because I wasn't too worried about keeping everything very perfect. And then because I have a ton of watercolor paper here and there was more images in the set, I was curious how this really weird sort of leaf image would look, and I thought it'd be fun to do a kind of a background with that one as well. Although after I first stamped it, I was like, oh, no. But more often than not, once you add some color, things totally change. So I was like, no, I'll go with it. I'll still watercolor it because I want to do both of these and just see how they turn out. So I cut both of these pieces. They're about 4 3/4 inches by 6. I wanted there to be enough space for me to tape them. And I'm using this purple tape again. Again, really liking this tape. One thing I really like about it is it's very easy to see through. So if you are more concerned about getting like a perfect, taped off border, that would be great with this because you can actually see where you're taping. Whereas me, I just cut the tape down because I didn't want to waste such wide tape. And I'm just holding everything in place because I knew I was adding, a bunch of watercolor and doing entire backgrounds. So I just wanted everything as a placeholder. So that's what I did. Taped both these down, and then I'm using my Mijello Mission Gold watercolors. And I'm painting my backgrounds first. This is kind of an underpainting. I've said this before, I'm not super proficient with watercolor. Practice definitely improves things. I've come a long way in the last 2 or 3 years, however long it's been since I really started watercoloring on cards. I'd come even further if I didn't jump around like a crazy person and use every coloring medium under the sun and switch around all the time. But it's fun to experiment. So with the first card there on the right, I kind of avoided most of the images. It doesn't matter if I go outside the lines or go inside the lines a little bit because I'm going to, add color on top. But I avoided it for the most part just to make things a little simpler. And then with the one with the leaves, I just painted over the whole thing because I was like, I am not going to paint around every single one of those leaves. That's going to take me forever. And they're all going to be green anyway. So I just painted over the whole thing, including the flowers. If you wanted to, you could mask, use some liquid masking for the flowers or avoid them. But I just painted right over them because I did such a light wash of color. I wasn't too worried about it. And then once I had that first layer on there, I had let it dry. And then I'm going in with just deeper colors to start painting in the images. And I'm not being careful. I'm letting it go outside the lines. In my head, when I do things like this, I'm kind of thinking pattern paper or wallpaper or whatever. And it doesn't need to be perfect. I actually really like how certain prints look when the color has been basically printed outside the lines, things, it's as if the, machines didn't line up or whatever. So that's what I was kind of doing here. Plus it makes things a lot easier when you allow yourself to not be so perfect and stay inside the lines. So I just go along, and the nice thing about having 2 prints to color is I can go back and forth and let one dry while I work on the other ones. So it kind of, in a way, saves me a little bit of time, really. So I just kept going back and forth and I did my underlay of color, and then I added 1 layer, which everything was still kind of looking a little boring, a little flat. It's when you start going in and adding more layers, you start deepening the colors and just adding that little bit here and there. That's when things really start to kind of come alive and pop a little bit. So that's just what I kept doing. So I added a second layer to the flowers, but just keeping it more contained towards, you know, the base of them. And then I started adding a second layer of green to all of the leaves, and I would just move it around. This whole time I've been using, this is a pretty big brush. This is a silver size 8 brush. This is also why I was purposely going outside the lines. You can actually get very detailed with this brush. It comes to quite a detailed point. But it takes longer and you have to be more careful. And I didn't want to do that. So I just allowed it to go outside the lines, but it also holds a lot of colors, so I can go quicker with it. So some of it's a convenience thing and some of it is just me forcing myself not to be so particular about things. So after the second layer, again, let everything kind of dry, and then I went in with a third layer, and that's where the color really starts to pop, and it just makes a huge difference. And I'm still not being, you know, super neat or anything like that, but I just want to get that color down. So I went in and deepened all of those flowers and then the little butterflies, and then after I get all of my coloring done, or to the point where I am happy with it, I want everything completely dry. It has to be completely dry before I add any splatter. Otherwise the splatter will, you know, meld into whatever colors, and then I'm just going to end up with a mess. So it was all dry, and then I just mixed up a couple of the darkest browns in the Mission Gold palette onto an acrylic block. And then I'm just flicking my brush against the edge of the acrylic block to create a little bit of brown splatter. And again, I let this completely dry. I want those splatters really dry. And I'm using some white gouache. Normally I use my Copic Opaque white, but I picked up this tube of white gouache in a recent haul and thought I would experiment with it. So I'm using that, and I'm just using a Ranger brush with this. I don't like using my silver brushes with any sort of gouache or acrylic paint or anything like that, just because I don't want to risk that drying into my brush. I wash my brushes immediately after doing anything like this, but I still would rather be safe than sorry. So I mixed the gouache with a little bit of water and did the exact same thing, just flicked it against my acrylic block just to give it that little bit of splatter to finish it off. And then everything is now dry, so I can peel off that tape. And I've said this before, I'm really liking this tape. It removes so cleanly, and as of yet has not pulled at any of my cardstock or anything like that. So I remove the tape, and then I'm going to die cut this with the WaffleFlower, the largest of their stitched rectangle dies. And this one's actually A2 size, so it's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So I die cut both of those pieces with that die. And then I have some black cardstock here and sentiments from the new Rainbows set. And that was actually the set I was going to use like for my main, like that with the coordinating dies for my video today. But the flowers were just calling. So the rainbows will have to wait for another day. But I did use the sentiments for a couple of the sentiments from the Rainbows set. And I am just stamping them onto some black cardstock here that I use my anti-static powder tool on. And I'm just stamping each sentiment twice with some clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to coat all of these with my white embossing powder, and then melt that with my heat tool. And I made sure to kind of stamp them as equidistant apart as I could, because it just is going to save me time when I go to trim these down. So after everything's melted, I'm just going to use my little Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer and trim down all of these into little strips. So just really quick and easy. And after I have all of these trimmed, I can go on and just finish the insides of the card. So my card bases are heavyweight white cardstock that I'd cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches and scored at 5.5. So these will be top folding A2 size cards. And I just stamped the main images from each card onto the inside using some MFT dye inks in similar colors. So I stamped the flower in kind of a reddish ink and the little butterflies with a pink. And then I'm going to adhere the Life is Colorful sentiment right over that with my little Xyron tape runner. So that's going to finish the inside of card number 1. And then on the second card, I'm going to do the exact same thing, but this time with the leaf image that I'm going to stamp with Field Green or Field Day ink. And then I'm going to stamp the little flower with that same Cranberry Cocktail red ink. And I missed that one spot, so I'm just able to look through the stamp, reline it up, stamp the piece that I missed, and go on about my day. So after I got that stamped, I'm going to adhere the second embossed sentiment there. And then for the actual cards themselves, I decided to pop up the main sentiments with a little bit of foam tape. I didn't want to make you know, anything too crazy. I just wanted to let the backgrounds, you know, be the focus of these cards. So I popped the sentiments on, and then I'm going to adhere these flat to my card bases. And because, like I said, those rectangle die, that largest one is an A2 sized, this will completely cover my card front. So I'm going to use my tape runner, ran that on the back of the watercolor paper, and then adhered that to my card base. And then I did the exact same thing with the second card front there. And then after I had those adhered, I had to add just a little bit of bling. So I pulled out my Pretty Pink Posh Sparkling Clear Mix Sequins, poured some into my little magic tray here, and then just kind of liberally applied these to my backgrounds. Just, you know, it gives it that little extra shimmer and that little extra something. So once I was happy with how many I had placed, I'm just going to use my little crystal katana here to pick up the sequins, put down a little dab of multi-medium matte adhesive, and then that's going to adhere those, and that will finish off my cards. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have links to all the supplies used. You can check that out in the description box below the video. Like I had mentioned at the beginning, this is part of a blog hop. There's giveaways. There's tons of inspiration from a bunch of amazing designers. So I will have links to all of that in my blog post. So you can check it out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.